Tec Sounds presents EduTrends.
Welcome to EduTrends, presented by the Institute for the Future of Education. This is a Tec Sounds podcast, the official podcast of Tecnológico de Monterrey. I am José Pepe Escamilla, Associate Director of the Institute for the Future of Education. Today's guest is Lisa Marsh Ryerson, President of Southern New Hampshire University. Lisa, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, Pepe, it's always good to be with you and to get SNHU and Tec de Monterrey together as well. Wonderful.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, I wanted to start with a more personal question. What inspired you to pursue a career in education, and what motivated you to take your current role in SNHU?
Oh, I love the opportunity to talk about that and also to be reminded of your story, if time allows as well. You know, I was inspired to become an educator because of great teachers in my life, in public education where I grew up, and wonderful faculty members. When I was in college, I was a first-generation college student, so those relationships with faculty meant a lot to me as I learned how to navigate what it was to be a college student. And I didn't know for sure that I would be an educator. For a while, I thought I'd be a lawyer, Pepe, but I had a wonderful faculty advisor in my undergraduate years who said, "You're a teacher. You're an educator." And so I pursued it. Now, I didn't know that I would be a college president, however. When I was beginning my career in higher education, there were not many women who were college or university presidents. I was first generation, so I didn't have the model in front of me. But I feel lucky, don't you, that I get to be a teacher across my life and career, and the privilege I have to educate students and support students who have often many, many barriers to pursuing post-secondary education. So I'm a teacher forever.
And what about the SNHU?
What about SNHU? Fabulous. I came back. You're right. The second part of the question. Early in my career, I worked in higher education. I was also a classroom teacher and became an administrator. And then I left. I don't know if you know this, Pepe. I left higher education and worked to fight and try to end poverty here in the United States for people who are 50 and older. And I was recruited back to higher ed by my predecessor, Paul LeBlanc. And I said, you know what? Of course I'm a teacher. And if I'm returning to higher education, SNHU is where I want to go because of its learner-centric focus, its belief in technology as a driver of learning, and SNHU's commitment to not resting on our laurels, to changing as we need to change to support our students. So I feel like I have the best job ever serving as president of SNHU.
Yes.
How about you?
Yeah. How about me? Well, I never thought I would be working in education or doing what I did. Well, somehow yes, but not exactly as I am now. Because in my past life, I'm a computer scientist. So I did a engineer degree and a master's and a PhD in computer science, more particularly in artificial intelligence. And then I started to work in artificial intelligence in education with some students. And I moved from the engineering school to the School of Education to open the master's degree in educational technology. So I had to learn a lot about education. And then I became the dean of the school. I was a dean twice for 11 years. And I've been working in education innovation with technology, but also with pedagogy, curriculum, different models for that. And I found that is my passion, not to see how I can inspire people to move, to change, to make things better, to make things more student-centered, as you were saying.
Yes. How lucky, I am to have you as a colleague, and the field of education is to have you as a leader. But it sounds like for both of us, whether or not we knew it was the path right away, we have different stories. The spark hits you And I feel that we're lucky, Pepe, to have work that is so purposeful, that matches our purpose, because purposeful work is meaningful and it shows up when we have purpose in the way that we interact with faculty and staff, and most importantly, with our students.
And also I can relate to what you said, because in your initial answer, well, I'm a first generation higher education student. My parents study only 6 grades of elementary school, and I'm a product of most of my studies were on the public system, and then I applied for a scholarship in Tec de Monterrey, and I went there to do the undergraduate degree. I'm a first generation.
Both of us.
So I most of us are, no. So I come from that part, and I think that that dream is becoming more difficult for many people right now. So how do you think we can ensure that there's equitable access for students for underrepresented and underserved communities?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Pepe. It's ever more important for us to do so, because, people, well, first of all, it's about humanity, but people are always our greatest assets, whether that's in community, whether that is in our colleges and universities or other organizations. So the more we invest in the opportunity for individuals, for people to have access to more learning across their life course, of course, that's better for their ability to unlock opportunity, but it is truly better for the communities that they serve, for their families, for the communities, the lives that they touch. So for me, it's about focus. I am fortunate that I get to work and serve on behalf of a mission at SNHU from our opening in 1932 that was built on the core belief that we had to open up access to higher education to people who were left behind. So whether that for us was older adults in New Hampshire, where we have our place-based learning, who were adult learners and hadn't had access to higher education, whether or not that was veterans returning from war who needed to have jobs and therefore needed to have higher education. And now for SNHU, as an institution that educates students across the nation and around the world, the access is ever more important for us. The way we do it is by recognizing that affordability is key, that we are designing a learning environment that is accessible in the broadest definition of accessibility, and that it's not just about opening a door, Pepe, that it's about committing, when you commit to access, to driving equitable outcomes, and recognizing that depending upon their backgrounds or identities or intersection of identities, that each learner needs something unique in terms of support to be able to meet their dreams. That is SNHU's core commitment, and I couldn't be prouder to serve as president of a university that believes in people first always.
Mm-hmm. That's a very interesting answer, and I always said that Southern New Hampshire University is very student-centered. I recently read a book recommended by a friend that is called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's about a guy that takes charge of a restaurant in New York and take it in 5 years to be the best restaurant in the world because he's unreasonable about hospitality.
See?
Also,
just
I think
on
that yes, I think we can be unreasonable student-centered, no, and think that we have to center not in the student as an abstract concept, but in each of the students. No, what is the approach we have to take to achieve that? What do you think?
I'm with you 100%. I want to read that book. I think that will be important to read because, what I sense in what you're saying, and I absolutely believe, and I'm fortunate that the people who work at SNHU believe this too, it's creating an environment that is focused on that notion of being like relentless welcome, that you are building an environment that centers on belonging for all. That means as the faculty and staff of the university, we are in welcome mode always and drawing toward belonging and providing, probably in the book about the restaurateur, student experience is important to us. The voice of our students, that we try very hard, Pepe, that not to design a support system off in a corner and plunk it down on students, but rather design with the students and with their feedback, because our students know best what they need. And we need to listen to them in order to design the programs that will help them persist and be successful in obtaining a credential at whatever level that is, whether that's a 2-year degree, a certificate, or all the way on to their PhDs.
Yes, and most of the times, also universities believe that when we deliver a scholarship to our underserved a student that comes from an underserved sector of the population, we have committed our goal of being more, inclusive, etc. But that's not enough. No, we have to make sure that they are successful in the system. We have a special scholarship for the lowest students that come from the lowest decile of the population. And those students get a lot of testing where they get into the university to be able to understand what are not only the disciplinary skills that they need to reinforce, but also the non-disciplinary ones.
Yes.
And also a mentorship program to accompany them during their stay at the university. So as a result of that, we have now a higher rate of graduation from that sector of students that come from a low-income background than the average of the university.
Yes.
And also, I think this is an example that there's something that we are not doing in our universities to be more student-centered.
I agree with you 100%. And I love the idea of the mentoring. And it partners a bit, though somewhat different than what we do. And I think you'll remember this at SNHU, where when students enter, they're assigned an advisor and they stay with that advisor across their course of study. And the advisor, when I talk to students about it, to learners about it, is almost a coach. That coaching, mentoring, it's the person you can depend upon no matter what is on your mind, or, life doesn't go as planned, especially students who come from underserved backgrounds or who are struggling with, systemic barriers that exist in society, or the many messages they've received that they don't belong in college, and those messages that are absorbed. So your mentoring program, our advising coaching program, we have found is key. And I would say, I really appreciate what you said about some colleges and universities thinking it's just making it financially accessible, but then forgetting all of the supports that people need. I think the reason why you're successful in that work, and we are at SNHU, is fundamentally, we believe in our students as assets to the university. So we always approach it not from a deficit, not from what a student doesn't have, but what are the strengths and assets they bring, prior experiences from their backgrounds. How do we welcome them in, create belonging? How do we leverage their assets and strengths as a way to address where they may need more support? And I wish in our industry, our shared industry, that there was more focus on the learner and maybe less focus on sustaining structures, sustain people and have the structure that allows us to educate more learners. And that philosophy at SNHU, that's what led to us being able to serve over 200,000 students.
200,000 students. I think you haven't said the number before, because when I was listening to you, many people that doesn't know your university may think that this is a small 3,000, 5,000 university.
Over 200,000.
So to be so focused on the individual and understanding the needs of each of the students. So I think there are two challenges here, and I would like you to tell us about that. How do you, on one side, do this? Because most of them are online, no? So how do you do that online, that they feel that are part of a community, they feel that they're just not a number, they're persons and they belong?
Yes.
I imagine that there's a lot that you have to do with teachers, staff, and administration to implement these type of innovations. And how do you leverage technology in order to do that?
Yeah, great. So redirect me Pepe, if I'm getting off track, because, as is clear to you, I love to tell the story of how SNHU grew and really scaled to over 200,000 students. And it is a proof point that having high quality, accessible, supportive learning environments online, and we do have a campus in place, matters. And that students are enrolling at SNHU. For us, it's about creating community and connection wherever the learner is, and recognizing that community and deep connection absolutely can happen on a college or university campus, but also can happen in a digital environment. And it's doing that by design, because college students, and you probably experienced this, can live on campus and be taking their courses and their program of study on a campus, but they also can be isolated and lonely. So it's recognizing, how do you create an environment where every learner has reliable connections, people they can count on, no matter what is going on in their life. Now, it does start, as you said, with very, very careful training for the faculty who are teaching online, and also for the students, and setting clear expectations about the connection to students, even in an asynchronous online environment. We invest a lot in our academic advisors and student experience staff. In fact, it's a very large team, over 3,000 at SNHU, who are trained to listen to the data about what's happening to the students. So we really monitor to create this connection in this environment. Are they turning in assignments? Are they attending other opportunities that are offered to them? When are they on track and off track? So that's some data, but we also are constantly listening to the voice of our learners, Pepe. So we have a very strong commitment to the belief that the best listening organizations are the most successful organizations. So whether that's surveying our students, whether that's phone calls, an omni-channel approach where we use AI chatbots as the first front door for a student. And as you know, and we'll probably talk about more, technology is, and it's your field, it's changing so rapidly that oftentimes students are more comfortable engaging with a chatbot, sharing a lot of information, and then those data systems can help us understand when a person on our team needs to interact with a student. So it really is about using data, being very rigorous and disciplined in listening to our students, and then being sure that we're designing academic programs and student support systems that meet this very large population with diverse needs. But I would underscore that I think in higher education today, and maybe for us at least in the United States post-pandemic, there was a feeling that places had to rapidly go online and you might take the curriculum you have and just put it on Zoom. That is not our belief. Online that is effective is designed specifically with the learners and faculty, but specifically to meet the needs of a virtual environment. And that's very different than the campus environment.
When I hear you, I would like to ask you, what will be like the experience of a student, and in essence, like a day in the life of a student?
Yes, a day in the life of a student. What also works, I love that you asked that. So I'm going to get some students in my mind. In online, the majority of the learners would be considered adult learners who are working adults and who are juggling, the many demands of their lives while they are learning. Although I would note that we are seeing an increase in what would be considered a traditional college-bound or traditional age college student enrolling online. So I think that is a signal that is important for higher education, probably globally, but certainly in the United States. What's exciting about our program is that the day in the life of a typical student just emerges from that student. So that student might be getting up, getting a family off to school, sharing life's tasks with their partner, going to one job or two jobs or more, and then they are able to log on and do their learning at the time that is most convenient or that fits into their life. For some, that could be early morning. For a traditional age student, maybe they're logging in during the day. And for other students, it might be when all of the demands and rigors of daily living are completed, they can find quiet and get online. And that is why all those support systems, whether through technology or through our advisors, need to be scheduled in a way. Everything from tech support to contacting your advisor, recognizing that it really is a 24-hour system, that students are learning when they want to learn. Well, they're taking their courses. Students have days that they have assignments due, and they're posting on their post boards. They're writing their papers and turning them in, and they're communicating with faculty members when they need to talk to that faculty member directly. So that's a lot of words for you, Pepe, and ask follow-up questions, but it might be, for example, more than a year ago, we had a graduate who was an adult learner, who was a long-haul truck driver, a woman, and her day was driving her loads and then finding when she was done with the hours of driving, going to rest stops and truck stops and getting close to Wi-Fi connections and logging into her learning and completing her degree while she was also doing her work. I love this about SNHU, that we recognize that time is so scarce for people, especially people who are living with low income, and that we designed our system to meet their schedules.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Not our schedule, their schedule.
Their schedule, yes. Yeah. So once again, student center, I will say. And how do you ensure the value proposition of your degree, so that students get better jobs? Do they what's your strategy to connect with the needs of society, business, industry, etc.?
Yeah. We believe in strategic partnerships to help us accomplish that. So not only core to SNHU, we have a very a wonderful provost and academic leadership and deans and directors who are constantly doing what you've done in your career and what happens at Tech and other universities, which is looking at the program health of our programs, looking at the competencies that students acquire in their learning, whether or not they're studying engineering or they are a psychology student or they are in a nursing program. So very much focused on developing workforce relevant, meaningful learning through courses of study and bundles of curricula that lead to opportunity for students. We care a lot that when students leave SNHU, they have social mobility, a better job if they're on a career path, more money in their pocket, Pepe. And our focus is on value and outcomes and workforce readiness, really, or not just readiness, because we have many adult learners who have had previous post-secondary education, or the 40 million in the United States who have some college, no degree. So we have to focus on the learner's ability to have a promotion, earn more money, have a pathway for their career post-SNHU. And we help them with that. Very robust career services, support for learners, also in that student experience pathway.
Nice. In my previous experience working with adult learners that are pursuing a degree, and most of my experience was in a master's degrees in education. So
that's right.
Adults that work, that have a family. So I, in terms of engagement, I think we had no problem. But sometimes adults have other issues in their lives that they want to prioritize because
right.
they have families, they have children, they have a spouse, etc. And sometimes they prioritize that over the degree. Have you had this challenge and have you found ways to cope with this, to show how postponing some of these things could be a good way of later being able to have a better job, for instance.
Yes, we certainly have experience with it, Pepe, just as you have had. In other words, just given the vast diversity in every way of the SNHU population, it is true that sometimes there are learners who very much need their degree or their credential to unlock more opportunity, but have a lot going on in their life. Again, for us, that goes back to our student support so that we can help a student curate how many courses they take. Maybe they should only be taking one course per term, and it might take them a bit longer, but it allows them to balance their commitment to meet their own goal of acquiring a degree or a credential while also fitting it in to their life. Because what we don't want to happen, as you were saying, is for a learner to choose SNHU, to come to SNHU and then not have success. In other words, to not excel academically or have to drop out or stop out. So our advisors and our faculty are just amazing, Pepe. You'll just hear me keep repeating that. They listen very carefully. They become almost like life coaches. They are empathetic people and create an environment of belonging where our learners can just share what's happening. And then the advisor can say, one course this term, I know you wanted to do it in X number of years, but let's slow this down. And when things get better, maybe we will add more to your load. So it is that commitment to the end result that allows us to help students know, of course, life can have many, many challenges and priorities, but your desire to get a degree can also fit in. We just don't make them go full time and give up those other responsibilities. We make it affordable, accessible, and then we cheer with them, whether it's 2 years or 6 years or more years, when they walk across that finish line and are at graduation with us. It's, again, we believe in people and we believe in their agency when we give it to them to work with SNHU to tell us what their dreams are and to achieve those dreams. But I keep repeating what is so core to our success. It's that we put a premium on understanding the individual needs of our learners. And that allows us to, at scale, use that data and know what interventions work best for the majority of students and where we have to be maybe hyper-specialized or focused on the individual needs. It's magical, Pepe, and we're academics, so we know that it takes a lot of administrative work and it's hard work, and it's about strategic planning, and it's about rigorous commitment to evidence and only making decisions based on evidence. But at the same time, every day whether I'm on campus or visiting students around the nation or world, I am awestruck by how spectacular and magical it is when you believe in the power of learning and when you believe that all people should have the opportunity. It's a social determinant of health.
Yes, I when I'm listening to you, well, I understand that you have done a great work of helping these underserved communities or underrepresented communities to have more opportunities to grow, to have a better job. But also, as we know, education is also more than that. It's not only getting a good job. No, it's
yes,
having people that are more rounded. We in Tec de Monterrey, we focus also in human flourishing. Also that we, yes, as humans, are better persons in a world, taking into account our entourage, and also our environment, the people that we work with, etc. And I was wondering if you want to say something about the challenges that we are having and
yes,
how universities can cope with those challenges, human
yes,
rights challenges, environmental challenges, nationalistic views on the world,
sure,
etc. It's a hard question, but I don't know if you have something that you want to
Sure, it's share. A hard question, but it's the core of education. And Pepe, we, just as you do personally, and you do it at Tec de Monterrey, at SNHU, of course, we're educators with degrees across the spectrum. And it is that we are not we are not a training institute. We are a university, to your point. So although we are absolutely focused on the value of the education and the way as a learner can make a decision about a program, a degree, a major that will fit in with what they need in their career path, we're also educating for humanity, is what you're saying. And that is true for us. We want our learners to be exposed to new ideas. They're exposed to new ideas by virtue of how diverse their peer learners are. And we see that as a good thing, that helps us work across perceived boundaries. It helps our learners be great community members and global citizens and more interesting to themselves and lifetime learners. So yes, that's through things like in our online program and our campus programs. Of course, we have general education and Common Core. And sometimes I know this from the advisors, there are students who say, oh, but those are courses and that might take me more time. But we require general education for the very reasons that you're stating. Having said that, when you think about partnerships or pathways, whether it's students across our universities or globally who are moving, we're really committed to giving students who come to SNHU as much credit as we can, because we know it is cost prohibitive to have university learners have to retake courses that they've taken someplace else. So we have a big belief that the program doesn't have to be bespoke to SNHU, that we are accountable to giving our learners maximum credit for prior learning to help them have an affordable pathway and the tightest timeline that works in their life to get their degree and to move on. It's also because we want them, you have to learn across a lifetime. I mean, I'm finding this. I spend time every day being sure that I'm literate in AI. And the goalpost moves every day. How are you doing in that space? I mean, we have to learn across our lifetime. You don't get one degree or your graduate degree and know enough for the rest of your career or your life.
Yes, we have to be learning all the time. And now it's with all these disruptions going on, we will have to continue learning. In this tone, I would like to ask you a last question, about the
We can't be at the end already. It's just too interesting to talk with you.
So about the future of higher education. So if you want to talk about how do you see higher education evolving, you take the window of time that you prefer, 5 years, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years. Where do you see it going?
Yes.
And how would you like to see it going?
Yeah. Well, these are interesting times, aren't they, Pepe? Yes. And it is the headwinds, I call them, for higher education. We're certainly strong even before the pandemic, stronger in the pandemic and post-pandemic, and given change in society and stronger still today. So if I take it in a 5-year view, I know that I am feeling fortunate and a lot of gratitude every day that I get to lead with others a university that has been rooted in innovation and knowing that we have to change, both as society or the environment calls for it and as our learners need it and our workforce partners, advise us. So we are adaptable, and the next 5 years will require that. My concerns for us over the next 5 years is helping to move the conversation about higher education away from higher education as I want the conversation to be about the value of learning. Okay. And there are these headwinds where there are, questions about the value of higher education. And my hope is that SNHU, along with colleagues, with colleagues domestically and globally, come together and change that dialogue and say that learning must be available to all and that we all do better when learners of all ages have access to affordable education, the support they need, the financial supports and life supports they need to acquire that learning, because that is the way that they're able to transform their lives. We don't transform it for them, but they transform it. I worry about that. Here in the United States, there are many colleges and universities that are struggling right now, and that isn't good news. We need the diversity of colleges and universities in communities across this nation and around the globe to remain strong. And we can only do that if we continue to be good partners to one another, because we truly are stronger and smarter when we work together across the whole. I think, so in short, I think higher education is in a period of rapid change once again. That's driven by AI. It's driven by economic factors. But let's partner together to continue to prove the value and the case for learning for all across the life course.
Thanks for your answer. I said it was the last one, but I wanted to ask if AI is more like a threat or an opportunity for higher education.
I see it as an opportunity, but I'm not naive about what could be viewed as the threat piece. I don't see it as a threat. I see it as an opportunity as long as we are investing in truly the upskilling and training of all of our faculty and staff to be sure that they are AI literate, that we are coming together and make decisions about the role AI does play already and should play in learning, everything from how we think about content and knowledge to how we assess and teach. I think we have to rise to this challenge, which is a great opportunity. And I mean that in the holistic way of learning, Pepe, not just in the other opportunity, which is effectiveness and efficiencies and being able to have AI help us with what is previously manual work and maybe not the best use of human skills and human time. So for me, it's an opportunity. But you know me, I'm basically a practical optimist. It is here and it is changing every day so drastically, and AI is not going away. So I'm not going to put my head in the sand and see it as a threat. I see it as a huge opportunity for SNHU and for learning overall.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm also an optimistic.
You are.
And I think it's an opportunity. And I think that AI will be what we as a society, as a group, make it. And also, we have to be not fearing AI, but being embracing it and taking it into the direction that we want it to go.
I agree with you. And at a place like SNHU, and given the core values that we've talked about and share, our challenge is to make AI accessible, to wring out the bias, and to be sure that learners whom we educate who have been left behind aren't further left behind. They have to be able to have verifiable, demonstrated skills, no matter what their discipline is, and know how AI will be a factor in their life and in their work going forward. So that is a requirement at SNHU, to be sure our learners who, because of systemic barriers, are often left out, have the power of generative AI to help them going forward. That's our commitment at SNHU.
I like that commitment, Lisa. I will take it also for me and my team. I want to thank you for your time and for your insights and sharing your work in Southern New Hampshire University.
Thank you, Pepe. You are an extraordinary leader, working and serving all of us in terms of thinking about the future of higher education. I learn from you all of the time and from your university and community. So what a joy to be connected to you and talk with you today.
Me too, dear Lisa. I love having this conversation with you, and I learn a lot about your leadership and your points of view on the future of higher education. Thanks.
Wonderful. Until we meet again, my friend.
I hope to see you soon.
Soon. Thank you.
Maybe the USB next month.
Let's do it.
See you.
For more information, visit
observatory.tech.mx/EduTrends podcast and ife.tech.mx. A special thanks to Tecnológico de Monterrey, the Institute for the Future of Education, and the Tec Sounds team. EduTrends producers Esteban Venegas and Christian Igosa. Stay tuned and play Tec Sounds in your favorite podcast app for other great shows and content.